There is a ship on the bottom of Pearl Harbor with over 1,000 men still inside it. It has been there since 1941. The oil it was carrying still rises to the surface today. People call it the Tears of the Arizona. 400 yards away, watching over it, is the USS Missouri. The ship the deadliest war in history ended on. The reason why the USS Missouri and USS Arizona are located together in that exact position, facing each other across the water, was not planned from the start. Someone tried to stop it, and the decision that overruled them is one of the most quietly extraordinary things anyone has done in the name of remembrance. Nobody really explains that decision. Who made it, why they made it, and why there was a fight about it. That is a more interesting story than most people realize. First, the USS Arizona. On the morning of December 7, 1941, the USS Arizona was moored at Pearl Harbor on what was called Battleship Row. It was a Sunday morning. Most of the crew were still below decks. Just before 8 o'clock in the morning, Japanese aircraft attacked. The USS Arizona was hit by several bombs. One of them tore through the deck and detonated the forward ammunition magazine. The explosion was catastrophic. The entire front of the ship disintegrated. Black smoke climbed 1,500 feet into the air. The USS Arizona sank in 9 minutes. 1,177 men died. Nearly half of all the American casualties that day came from one ship in under 10 minutes. And this is the part that matters for this video. Unlike every other ship sunk that day, the USS Arizona was never raised. The damage was too severe. The decision was made to leave the battleship exactly where it was, on the bottom of Pearl Harbor, as a permanent grave for the men still inside. The USS Arizona is still there today, slowly dissolving into the harbor floor, still leaking oil. The oil continues to rise to the surface more than 80 years later. People call it the Tears of the Arizona. Now, here is what most people do not know. The USS Arizona was not supposed to have a neighbor. When someone suggested it should, the people in charge of the memorial fought back hard. But before we get to that fight, you need to understand what the USS Missouri actually was and why anyone thought it belonged at Pearl Harbor at all. The USS Missouri was commissioned in June 1944. The battleship never saw Pearl Harbor as a warship. It came into service 3 years after the attack, joined the Pacific Fleet, and spent the final year of the war bombarding Japanese positions at Iwo Jima and Okinawa. But the Missouri's most important moment came on September 2nd, 1945. In Tokyo Bay, on the deck of the USS Missouri, representatives of Japan signed the Instrument of Surrender. The ceremony lasted 23 minutes. Just like that, the deadliest conflict in human history was over. The USS Missouri had been the stage for the end of the war. That made it one of the most historically significant ships ever built. The Missouri went on to serve in the Korean War. Then it was mothballed. Later, it was brought back for the Gulf War in 1991, where it fired cruise missiles at targets in Iraq and became the last American battleship ever to fire its guns in combat. The USS Missouri was decommissioned in 1992, and then the question became, what do you do with a ship like that? Plenty of ships get scrapped. Plenty get turned into museums in random ports where nobody visits them. The USS Missouri could easily have ended up forgotten in a shipyard somewhere. The fact that it did not, and the reason it ended up specifically at Pearl Harbor, specifically facing the USS Arizona, came down to a fight that almost did not go the right way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you want to see more stories about the ships and decisions that shaped history. In 1998, the Secretary of the Navy donated the USS Missouri to the USS Missouri Memorial Association in Honolulu. The plan was to bring the battleship to Pearl Harbor as a museum ship. The National Park Service pushed back. The National Park Service runs the USS Arizona Memorial. Their concern was straightforward. The Arizona Memorial was the centerpiece of Pearl Harbor. Nearly 2 million people visited every year. The memorial was quiet, solemn, a war grave. And now someone wanted to park an 887-foot battleship right next to it. The worry was that the USS Missouri would overshadow the memorial entirely, that Pearl Harbor would stop feeling like a place of remembrance and start feeling like a theme park. The debate went back and forth. Eventually, a compromise was reached. The Missouri would come, but it would be placed well back from the Arizona Memorial. It would be positioned so that visitors on the Missouri's decks could not see the Arizona Memorial during ceremonies. The two ships would be kept as separate experiences. But there was one more decision, and this one was deliberate. The Missouri's bow would face the Arizona, not side on, not turned away, facing directly toward the sunken battleship, watching over it. The official explanation was simple. The USS Missouri now stands watch over the remains of the USS Arizona so that the men inside the hull may rest. A veteran docent at the memorial put it more plainly. When a visitor asked why the Missouri faces that way, he said quietly, "This way. The Missouri will always be standing watch over our boys." And here is the detail that is genuinely hard to get your head around when you think about it properly. The USS Arizona represents the moment America entered the war. December 7, 1941, the attack that changed everything. The USS Missouri represents the moment it ended. September 2nd, 1945. The surrender on the deck, the beginning and the end of America's involvement in the deadliest war in history, are sitting 400 yards apart in the same harbor. One on the bottom, one standing over it. That arrangement, that exact, deliberate positioning, only happened in 1999 because someone decided it should. It was not an accident. It was not geography. Someone looked at those two ships, looked at what they meant, and decided they should face each other forever. The USS Arizona will never move. The hull is too fragile now, too dissolved into the harbor bed. Moving the wreck would destroy it and disturb the men still inside. And the USS Missouri is not going anywhere either. It is exactly where someone decided it should be. 400 yards apart. The start of the war and the end of it, facing each other across the water. That is why the USS Missouri and USS Arizona are located together at Pearl Harbor. And honestly, it is hard to imagine it any other way. If you want to see more stories like this one, subscribe and hit the bell. And if you have ever visited Pearl Harbor and stood on that deck, drop a comment below. I would genuinely like to know what it felt like.